talks lined up today. We've got Ben and Sean from Parity talking on substrate and like giving some like review on the workshop we actually posted yesterday on substrate. It's pretty cool. We have Aiden from Chainsafe. We have Emil from Polkascan, and then we also have Alicia from Robonomics. Sorry. Thank you, Robonomics. Still doing it wrong. I apologize. Great, but to kick off the event, we actually have an open mic. So this is an opportunity for anybody in the crowd to come up and like share a project. If you're doing something on substrate or anything else, or anything you just want to share with the crowd. One little enticer, like we will give you a t-shirt if you come up and share something on our open mic. So come on up, anybody? There we go, we got our first guy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sylvan, and yesterday we announced that we have founded the Bear Chain Association, and we are focused on bringing Berlin, like further connecting Berlin in blockchain. And the other thing that we've done yesterday specifically is also bring politicians into the game. So basically, I don't know, I don't really have an ask, I just want to announce it, but if you're interested, have a look at bearchain.com. where we were announcing a couple of things. We have a Slack channel, these kind of things. And that's basically it.
Medium or large?
Come again?
What size are you?
Oh, t-shirt. Medium.
Great. Cool. I see a lot of guys coming up.
Hello, I'm Ivo, and I'm founder of Alex Network. And we're one of the first companies to start developing on substrate. We're currently doing payment channels as a parachain, and in the future we're going to do some counterfactual magic, again as parachain. And we already published our substrate implementation, so you can, I guess you can check our GitHub. It's just Alex Network, and yeah, I guess that's it.
Anybody else in the room who wants to come up and say a few words? Anybody else? Last chance to get a Parity t-shirt. Last chance. Yep, okay, cool. Then I guess we'll get kicked off. Ben, welcome to the stage.
One second, sorry. Usually works better. There we go. Okay, that was complicated. Hello everyone. Also hello to the live stream. Just a quick note. I put the link to this slide deck in the meetup.com page, so you can also find it later as a comment, and you can follow along at the live on your screen at home. Okay, what's it? So hi, my name is Ben. I'm one of the core developers of Substrate, working for Parity. But blockchain is not my background. I actually come from the social web, 1.0 and later 2.0. I built communities in the classic web space. Discourse might be a software that some of you are familiar with. I contributed to that in the early days. before the post-Snowden happened, and I moved more into the privacy-first, offline-ready, peer-to-peer community networking sphere of things. I'm saying this because I don't come from the blockchain world, I don't come from the crypto coin world, and I joined this project because I'm mostly interested in dApps, in decentralized apps, and its infrastructure. Remember, dApps, like the future, right? Or maybe the past's future, because it's been a while that this has been around. Like I don't know if you remember, but the David Johnston kind of definition of a dApp, that happened in late of 2013. And also the blog post that Vitalik posted on the Ethereum blog was actually May of 2014. It's been around for a while, it's been 5 years now. And even back then, they already acknowledged that within that definition, other things apply that are even older, like BitTorrent or Bitcoin, for example. So this idea has been around for a while, and I'm wondering, like, but where are all the dApps at? Like, there should be more, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand there's, like, if you go to the stateofdApp.com, there's 2,432 dApps around, and especially, like, considering that this is 4 or 5 years, yeah, a lot has happened, obviously. We've seen plenty of contracts being deployed to Ethereum. We've seen, specifically the last 2-3 years, what feels like a gazillion ICOs, though not all of them actually using blockchain. And we have seen a lot of things happen. We have seen new platforms emerge, like Steam and EOS, and frameworks built on top of these to make it easier to build applications like Status.im or Aragon. And we've also seen really new applications in the dApp sector like Zcash and privacy-focused systems like Grin, which launched earlier this month. We've seen also from the not so blockchain part of this ecosystem, things like the Beaker browser or Opera moving into this field of allowing browsing in the decentralized web. And another thing, like late last year, the first mobile client for Scuttlebutt, for secure Scuttlebutt launched, which is called Manyverse. But if you look at that, like I've pointed out like some specific projects here, but the majority of what happened is in the top part. And it feels like there's a lot more noise than actual signal if we look at the entire things and what happens. And I wonder why is that? And if you come to think of it, it's because building a dApp is still pretty hard. Like it has been hard and it still is very hard. And there's new things we learned about building dApps that have come since, and I want to look at that by looking at a few specific projects. I'm not talking about all the problems, but there's a few things that I feel like we're not talking about enough. One very famous project I think you all have heard about is the CryptoKitties. You have heard about it at least when it made the international headlines that it effectively broke Ethereum. And the reason that this happened, a quick reminder, it's a more or less simplistic game on top of an Ethereum contract that allows you to trade cats, fungible asset, tulips, if you will. But what it showed was that there's a fundamental problem in the way that we're currently approaching this, and that is that I'm running a dApp. Like the people were not mad that that CryptoKitties transactions didn't go through. There were a lot going on, so that was fine. But other people having other dApps were annoyed that their transactions didn't go through. And that's a side effect that we noticed for the first time, really, is that you running your dApp on such a platform, on a general purpose platform, means it might be affected for things completely unrelated. For example, the popularity of another dApp. The prices change, and that has nothing to do with what you provide for your customers want. And that is quite the opposite of the network effect that we actually wanted. Like the idea of the peer-to-peer network effect is that when you add more nodes to the network and things become popular, spreading of them becomes faster, more performant, easier. But we see the opposite here. When things become popular, it becomes a bottleneck. And it appears that we've moved this this peer-to-peer performance layer that exists still on this lower layer. On the networking layer, these blocks are still distributed really fast. It's really, that all works. But we've moved the entire scalability issue of popularity of apps just one level higher. And they can't really deal with that. Like, we don't have a really good idea of how to deal with that. We have some mitigation tactics and we're working on it, but there's a fundamental architectural problem we're facing. And that CryptoKitties really just pointed out. Until today, like, what is CryptoKitties supposed to do to fix this? There isn't really much they can do, and this is an issue. I want to look at another project that you might have heard of, PPIP, which is interesting because it is a past CryptoKitties project that specifically took learnings from what CryptoKitties did or what happened with CryptoKitties. In case you don't know it, it's a Twitter-like social network running with a Ethereum contract. It looks like this, aside from the Twitter screen that I placed out here. And a few things that they learned is they don't really use Ethereum and Ethereum storage for everything. They primarily use it for the accounting system that it provides. It's an easy, like a Facebook login kind of replacement. And one thing they added on top to not clock the set in your own transaction and do that on your own, or you can go through their service and they batch a bunch of these updates together, and so through that they try to mitigate the problem of clogging the pipeline. That has an interesting side effect that allows for free peeping. So in the classic system, in a gas metered chain, you cannot do anything for free, right? It's like a chain could offer that, but that would be very easily spam attacked. So chains don't usually offer that, but I don't want to pay for every tweet I do. Like, most people won't do that. They will simply not tweet. And they attack this issue by allowing, like, at the beginning you have to pay for it, but once you have a reputation with the system, they do the paying for you. You go through their system, and this allows you free peeping. That's what they're called. And they don't actually store most of the content on Ethereum itself, but they store it on IPFS. So they mostly have references to IPFS storage on the system. But if we look a little closer at the project, we also notice that this particular part that I was talking about, this entire batch updates and allowing for peeping and that kind of stuff, that is a closed source front end to that contract. You can still use that contract, and you can just go through the normal transaction system, but if you want any of these new features that they've built, you have to go through a centralized system that they provide on people.com. And that effectively means there's a centralized control again. Don't get me wrong, I think this is not wrong here. I'm just wanting to point out an architectural issue here, because I do like their project. I think what they're doing is great, but one fundamental thing they're trying to address is not to make Twitter decentralized. That's not Twitter's problem, but moderation. Twitter's problem is moderation, and they have interesting approaches to doing that and allowing better moderation and to build a different type of community, but they can't express that in these kind of free-for-all, open-for-all contracts. It's simply not possible in the current system that they have. And so what they did is they built another system in front of it that allows them to exert that control. But unfortunately, that is centralized again. I want to look at two more projects that I mentioned before. The one is Zcash and the other one is Ring. Excuse me. So if you don't know about Zcash launched in October 2016. It's a zk snark-based zero-knowledge transaction system, basically a private transaction system. They built their system by forking the Bitcoin client and replaced the stuff that they needed to replace in order to build their system. But it's its own full blockchain in any sense of the meaning. And I'm not sure, but I don't think it has a contact or similar system at all. The other one is Grin, which just launched earlier this month in mainnet, which is a Mimblewimble private transaction system. So these are two privacy-oriented systems, allowing you to do transactions in a private manner. They have been obviously not able to, I assume that they figured out that they cannot just fork another code base and change some parts in order to be able to launch their project, so they created their own ROS client from scratch. And they started doing this in October 2016. And as mentioned before, they launched in January this year. Just a quick reminder of how long October 2016 is ago. That is before that orange man was elected president. That is really long in our terms of computer science and what we do here. It takes a long time to build these things. And that is the fundamental problem that I'm seeing at the moment. Is if you want to build it up, you have effectively two ways to do that. Either you go through the smart contract way, which means you need to be okay with the contract model and its sandboxing model. You need to be somewhat okay with the gas emitted market and that it's outside of your control, which is something that we hear a lot. Is like I cannot tell my customers that the transaction you did yesterday is going to be twice as expensive today. I cannot explain that to my customers. There's a lot of cases where this is fine, but there's also a bunch of cases where it's not. And you need to be all right with what the current privacy implications are about this state transaction system. You can mitigate some of the systems, and this is why I picked the problems, the cases I did, by adding other services around that, like PIPAP does. But what we're seeing when these systems are added is, if you attempt to fix a problem, and there is no easy way to do that decentralized, you will navigate towards the centralized solution to it, because you intentionally just want to solve that problem. But it's a default behavior. You end up with a centralized system. Or you can come with what I call BIOE, bring your own everything. Sometimes you're lucky. You can fork off a different code base. You can use the Bitcoin client because it's what you want to change is fairly small enough that it can work in there. Or you go to our Ethereum client, which is what we have been doing at Parity for enterprise projects. We've mangled around with it a lot, and now certain things are easier to replace, but it hasn't been built for that. Neither of those projects have been built to be easily replaceable modules. And even if you have that, it's still really hard to get this right. It's still a lot of work. It's very costly. In doubt, you have to effectively build everything yourself. And a blockchain and everything that is required is a lot of work. There's a lot of modules going into that, a lot of things that you need to do. And that is very often unnecessary work. If you want to try out a new consensus algorithm, why the hell do you need to build a database? Why do you need to come up with your own networking scheme? This is a lot of work that you might not be the expert for in the first place. But moreover, that has been sort of figured out for a big part. Which all comes down to what I said before, so that is still pretty hard. But because of these two factors that we are seeing, one part is that because we are not offering good decentralized solutions for a lot of actual problems that dApps have, they gravitate towards building centralized fixes around them. And then they go offline and we don't have the source code and we're stuck with what we had before. And on the other part, if you really want to change other things that are outside of the scope that even a centralized server around a contract can offer, you basically have to build a lot of stuff. And some people argue, yeah, well, you need to be able to do that, otherwise it doesn't make sense. But it's an unnecessary barrier for entry. If you really want to, you have this most amazing new hashing algorithm and you want to try it on big scale, why do you need to build all of that? That's not correct. And that means we stifle innovation at this moment. Because we expect people to build a lot more that they don't necessarily need to build. And of course, this is where our company and the product comes in. Yay! Who would have guessed? That we are trying to build something that can help us with these problems. So, quick reminder for the scope of this talk. Substrate is a Polkascan-compatible general-purpose blockchain development kit in Rust, meaning that you can build your own blockchain, we say fairly easily, out of the parts that we provide. In particular, it allows you to focus on the actual chain logic when building your chain. What does that mean? When you think of a node in the network, a peer, and our default system is called substrate node, there's, as mentioned before, a lot of things that it needs to provide. It needs to be able to do networking, secure networking in best case. it needs to synchronize blocks across the entire network, it needs to have a consensus system, database, yada, yada, yada. There's, I think, 18 different modules that we currently have that are going into this. But if all you want to do is build a CryptoKitties, you mostly don't care. This is not where your business logic lies. This is coming from the web world. Like, I build a lot of web service. I don't parse HTTP headers. That's not what I do. This is not what my clients pay me for. This is what I have libraries and modules for. And this is exactly where Polkadot, where Substrate attempts to offer a solution to say, this thing, that actual state transition function, we call that the chain runtime, that is something you can completely do as you please. While these all come with decent defaults. You can still configure them, you can change the configuration, you can change, hopefully through more consensus algorithms, kind of, we don't provide that many, but we want to provide more. But you don't have to build your own consensus engine and all of that kind of stuff. And that this is generally achievable is something that Gav showed at the Web3 Summit already, when he very famously got a factory sealed MacBook Pro, gave it to a volunteer from the audience, let that person set up the entire MacBook, including a Substrate development environment, while Gav was giving his talk, and then sat down at the computer and built a new chain and upgraded the chain logic live on stage. So that this is a general something that is possible and plausible to do has been proven. But as mentioned before, yesterday we took another step in this, and this is the first iteration of the Substrate collectible workshop, which happened very close there. A workshop where we hands-on self-learning material that should allow everyone to get up to speed to build such a system. And Sean is going to show you a little bit about it.
Hi. Hi, my name is Sean Tabrizi. I'm a recently pretty new dev at Parity, and spent some time recently trying to hack on Substrate, basically. I think Ben mentioned, and I just want to reiterate, that basically building dApps, if you want to build a cool idea, maybe the easiest thing you could do is rely on existing infrastructure, something like Ethereum, build a smart contract on top of it. Because building networking layer, building database, all that kind of stuff, it's really hard. But in the current day with Substrate, there might be other options. There might be ways that you can build your app in a scalable, way, and have a lot more control over what's happening with your chain. And that's kind of what the Substrate node template does. So as I mentioned, you can build a Substrate node. This template that we provide is a way, kind of a framework, the minimal things you need to get your node running. And really all I've been doing is kind of been hacking on this and seeing what we can do and pushing the limits and trying to get feedback for how this works. And one of the things I wanted to do, I think Ben alluded to, was build a Kitties app. So I basically thought to myself, okay, what would happen if I could build CryptoKitties on Substrate? What would it look like? How would it work? And would it work at all? And that's basically kind of what I did. I went through, spent a lot of time learning how to build this, basically all the parts of the runtime, all the logic, emulating the simplest parts of CryptoKitties. I think that makes it the most recognizable. And from that, we built a workshop, kind of teaching all the knowledge, all the steps from beginning to end of how you could actually do this yourself. And that's what we did yesterday for the first time, showing off this workshop and actually making it run through. So I want to actually show a quick demo, real quick. So at the end-to-end, so give you a second idea. So this is kind of the repo works. There's kind of two halves. There is the node template, which I've modified and added my own logic to, and then also the UI element. And together, this creates what we consider a dApp. So we go actually back to here. We can see this is, ooh, I don't like this formatting. Okay, well, CSS aside, you can see here we have an app running on a blockchain. We have accounts, balances. And if I wanted to go and create a new kitty, I could specify a user, like Alice, and we can create a kitty. Once the transaction gets finalized, a new random kitty should be generated, and Alice should be the owner. This is all happening on a blockchain running on my computer. And then we can do things that are very famous for CryptoKitties, things like breeding. So let's take 2 kitties, and I'll copy this ID. And I'll be using another tool, like something called the Polkascan UI, which is a more general kind of tool for debugging and being able to interact with your chain. I'll run another function. You can see I have multiple functions here I've built into my chain. This one will do breed kitty. So we'll take the ID of one cat, and we'll take the ID of another cat, and we should see that we produce an offspring which has traits of both. And again, this is a very, I think, popular thing that happens on the CryptoKitties chain. Yeah, as you can see, maybe it has a bow here, it might have a different smile. This one looks like an exact clone of this one. And we can try to copy. Again, right now we only have 5 traits, so it's, you know, the 2 in the chance that, oops, there's a chance that it may just produce this. I want to see if I get one that mixes them up. Yeah, you can see that the mouth is pulled, you know, different mouth, but has the same, you know, color as this one, has different thing. Yeah, so again, you can see if you have these kitties, you can build it. And again, I wanted to walk someone through how could they get to this step, how from no knowledge about such development, how you get here. And really what we've done is built what I think is a pretty good collector's workshop. It should walk you from the very beginning on how to get your node set up, how to create a module, what a module is, how to store values, and eventually how to actually create events, track kitties, own multiple kitties, you know, do all the management of storage and do things safely and the best practices that we have right now. And really, you know, up until now, if you wanted to build on Substrate, I'm sure some people in this room who can tell you how difficult it has been. But all the knowledge that I had gained from within the company and from building on this myself, I've tried to put here, and this workshop will continue to grow. And I think really what we're trying to say is that as of yesterday, we tested this out. I think a lot of people give us great feedback, and most importantly, people were actually successful in getting through this process and building their own chain. So we really encourage you to do the same, to give us feedback, to tell us what you need to know or what we can improve on to iterate, and really want to prepare a whole new set of developers to be able to easily build on Substrate and really, you know, push the limits of what we can do and what your ideas can, you know, form on this awesome platform. Yeah. Again, this is all open source, so you can actually go and you can find the workshop on GitHub right here. And so not only do I expect you to check it out, try it out, but also, you know, again, open issues, open pull requests. We love to hear feedback, and we really love to iterate and make this kind of a really like a first-class instructional guide to get from 0 to 60. Thanks.
There's the link. I'm going to put it into the meetup information as well. Don't worry, you can find it later. We encourage you, you saw the material to also go through by yourself. It should be doable. We have coaches here that is always helpful. It's also more fun if you do it in groups, so that's a recommendation. We will actually run a second iteration of that. This goes primarily also to the feed out there. At Polkascan in Brussels on the weekend, on Saturday. I'm going to also put the link to sign up for that into the description. Coming back to the topic then, so is that the future? Like all the problems I mentioned, it's just everybody building their own chain now? Is that what we do? Well, maybe. I don't know. Shout out to Aragon, who announced today. This is why you do the slides on the same day. You don't know what comes out of Twitter. Who've announced that they're actually researching whether they want to build a own blockchain specifically for DAOs connected to Polkadot. I'm not aware if they do use Substrate for that, but I recommend that they try. However, of course, there's things to consider. I'm not telling you that everything is rainbows and unicorns here. At this very moment, with this step forward, it's getting better, but it's still harder to build a runtime Ethereum contract. That is an Ethereum contract. That is primarily because it's a new language, it's Rust, that you would have to do if you use our tooling. To do that, you can run anything that compiles to WASM, but I recommend Rust, first off, because it's good for this. It's generally a good language to do that. And then secondly, we provide a lot of modules, and I'm going to come back to that later. But in general, we have less experience in doing this. We have less experience in just building runtimes than we have with contracts. We also have fewer tools around this. But you notice all three of them are things we can improve on, and we will improve on over the year. We have a strong focus to make all of these less painful, and I think we're getting there. The other thing is that interactivity between dApps becomes a different thing. If every dApp has their own chain, or at least a lot of dApps are not on the same chain anymore, you cannot just call a function of another contract. Because it's not living on your chain, it's living on a different chain. The same goes for, if you build an entire chain, it's also an entire chain. You need a network, you need enough nodes to actually connect for this to be secure in the first place. For both of that, Polkadot aims to solve this, right? I mean, Polkadot specifically, its relay chain mechanism allows you to have message passing between chains, and this is a key important part that differentiates a Substrate from many other frameworks that are out there. But that will still be different. Like, you're passing a message down and you might get a message back. It's still not a function call, it's still going to be asynchronous, and you have to rely on a different chain, and you have to rely on a different format that the chain might provide. But if you become a parachain, specifically in the Polkadot network, or actually in any consensus and consortium that runs a Polkadot-style network, you can directly piggyback on the system of that network. You could deploy the system, and it becomes a parachain, and then the entire security of the network and spread of the network would have to be alleviated secondary. One other thing that is fundamentally different is the way that code reuse works. It is a lot closer to what you would consider a classic software code reuse model, where, or classic in the sense that most software projects today use something like this, where you have packages of libraries. In our system, we provide a bunch of helpers to build a runtime, which is called the Substrate Runtime Module Library. And these are modules, this is not even accurate anymore, we changed some of the structures here. But each one of them is going to be packaged and can be downloaded through Crates.io, which is the package management system for us. And that also means that other people can provide other modules that you can pull from Crates.io, and Kafka is really good at allowing you to do that, to offer a wider variety of things that can be done on a chain. And anybody can just plug them in and use them. Going from the other parts, is because Substrate is meant to do exactly what I'm telling you to do. It has solved this general problem that we have in frameworks, in libraries that attempt to allow developers to do something, that you want them to have minimum effort while have maximum freedom, which is generally an arts environment, and you have to choose one or the other, in a, I'd say, unique way, by offering varying degrees of effort versus freedom. The runtime module library that we're talking about right now, and that also the workshop is focusing on, is one particular part that comes with a lot of things set up for you. Like, you cannot change the hashing algorithm at that moment, for example, because parts of the module library depend on that. But if you do not use these specific modules, then you might be able to change it. Then you have to move up and use Substrate Core. You can change most parts of Substrate Core if you really want to. You can use a different consensus algorithm. It's meant to be pluggable already, for the fact that we need a different system in Polkadot, which is built using Substrate, than we have for Substrate Node, because it's quite more complex in Polkadot. The same goes for the database system. We want to see new and interesting ideas of how to deal with this really interesting, different type of data that we produce in here that is largely inefficient in a key value store, to be honest. And this is why we made the entire system, the higher you go, the more freedom you get. You can also just only connect to Polkadot itself and connect on that. But at the same time, it comes with a lot of things that are built in. You can basically switch on if you want them. I'm not going to go through the entire list. As mentioned, this is something that I'm going to put the slides up. But this is not just the general pitch I want to give today. What I want to talk to you about today is what else? What else should we do with this in 2019? in particular, we are, most of us, infrastructure people. We built these kind of systems and we built them happily, but we're not building dApps in general. So we would like to see you use it and tell us what else should we build in? Should we have other things that we don't know yet about, or like a bunch of ideas come to mind when we just talk about them? It's like, should we have other consensus engines? Should we have a proof of work consensus engine? Should we have maybe a Mimble reader? That sounds fascinating. Or Parsec, which is what Native uses now. Should we plug in other protocols, like one I mentioned earlier today was IPFS being used definitely by a lot of dApps. Well, how about we provide that so that you can directly use that? What about that? Filecoin, when it's going to be there? Or how about additional crypto features that help you build things that currently aren't possible because state transitions don't allow you to do that, like secret stores or self-encrypt features. And in particular also privacy features like the GRIN style private transactions. We think that could be possible to provide that as a module. You don't need to have this entire thing that they needed to build. The necessity was there. How about a zk-SNARKs module that you could use to have zk-SNARKs kind of behavior in the system? You can see, we can think of many, but we don't want to build them in a vacuum. And there's no point in doing that. So I'm asking you, and this is also why we're showing this, to grab Substrate, to try this workshop, to learn how to use it on time, and then try your own thing, try your dApp, see how far you can get it, and join us on the new subreddit that we created, or through Matrix on Substrate Technical, and tell us about it. What worked, what didn't work, what didn't work, what problems do you have, what other features are you missing? We want your feedback so we can build more and awesome things this year on Substrate. And that's it, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Sean and Ben. I would like to now invite Adrian from Chainsafe to give us a little talk.
Oh no, that's just the library. I talked lowercase. Sorry, I forgot your name. I didn't see you. That's all you gotta do. Just be like one thing. Push the button. Oh. Oh,
Okay, I'm gonna start now. Everyone will stop talking. please. Thank you. Okay, hi. My name is Aidan Hyman, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Chainsafe Systems. We're a blockchain research and development firm based in Toronto, Ontario. And today I'm going to talk about a project we've been working on called the Polkascan. And just for the sake of the presentation, who here is a developer? Would you please raise your hand? Okay, awesome. And who out of those people is a blockchain developer?
What's a blockchain developer?
They knew it. They knew
What's a
it.
blockchain?
Cool. So yeah, we'll have to explain a couple of things as we go. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I like community, I like events like this. This is why I'm in this space. It's because together we do incredible things in this community. The technology really just comes as a result of, you know, as they were talking about, they need people to look at their stuff and recommend to them, you know, what they need, the community. So it's really things like this that lead the technical discussion. Most of what we do is implementing sidechains for clients and then bridging those sidechains to the mainnet. And so naturally, something like Polkadot is extremely exciting to us. Yeah, today we were really proud to announce that we're going to be implementing the Polkadot runtime environment in Go. Yeah, that's super exciting for us. It's super exciting for the Golang community in general, because yeah, it's just going to make the Polkadot ecosystem that much more versatile and yeah, accessible to developers. Yeah, so that's most of my experience doing that stuff. And currently, I'm really focused on really defining what a self-organized development cycle looks like. Like, what does it look like when we as a community lead discussion on a technical front, and how do we then kind of organize that, right? You know, there are exciting things from the 80s and the 90s, like Agile, Scrum, and all these things. And I think we take for granted how much different what we do every day is, and how much we need to define that, so then we're able to kind of take advantage of these frameworks that together we can build. And yeah, my background is in more communication studies and stuff like that, and just really understanding why we do what we do and how that kind of gets interpreted and perceived by others. Yeah, if you want to talk to me, send me an email, aiden@chainsafe.io. I usually use the Chainsafe GitHub because it's more fun. And yeah, on Twitter, I usually use the Chainsafe Twitter because again, much more fun. So yeah, that's me if you want to talk. And this is us. These are the things we are not just, but these are some of the things we're really proud to have worked on and continue to work on. One of those is an Ethereum 2.0, like a beacon chain implementation in TypeScript. Which we're really excited to be working on. A brand new repo as of last night, which is the Go PRE. We don't really have a name for it yet. Dnode, which is an incentive mechanism for full nodes. So right now in Ethereum, there's a problem with incentivizing actual full nodes to not be kind of held by a company like Ethereum. People like Amazon, Google, if they enter the space, you know, we're going to have a lot of problems. So that's something that we're really proud to work on, and we're leveraging the Aragon DAO framework to build a DAO that will govern that community of full nodes. WayPay, which is a cross-platform mobile wallet that's supposed to be very simple and easy to use. And one of the things for us that was super important was to make something that is cross-platform, so that you only have to kind of add something once to it if you want to PR into it, but then also give people the ability to add any tokens they want. Look up any contracts. So right now you can look up any ERC20, add it, and you're not restricted by people who have not paid us to get their tokens listed. It's anything you want, the way it should be. and then Chainbridge, which is an EVM to EVM bridge. So yeah, it allows you to have transfers of any type of token or any kind of blockchain thing. I mean, a token we think of as cryptocurrency, but it could be anything, and that can be done, 3, 4, however many chains you want to set it up with. Right now, I'll talk about it in a sec. It's live on top of Gurley, and so yeah, we'll kind of talk about that a bit. And then ETH Local, which is a key management solution. Again, it's trying to allow a developer to determine the UX of their dApp. So right now, we're trapped using things like MetaMask, and so every single dApp, the UX starts with trying to get someone to download an extension. And I personally don't think that needs to be the direction UX goes, but it can be. It's up to you as a developer to build that. So this allows you to do that with a couple of different things under the hood. It's still a work in progress very heavily, but something I'm really proud of. So now about Gurley, which I'm just honestly learning how to say right now. Been saying Gorley all along. We're trying. So it started at ETH Berlin, which was a hackathon not too long ago. And we attempted to actually implement Aura into Geth, because we write Go, we don't really write Rust too regularly. So that was what we tried to do, and we had a lot of problems in breaking. Like, it basically broke Geth. We'll talk about it a bit. And we were really happy to have this. So some of my teammates from then are here, Elizabeth, David, and Chris. And we had a bunch of people, too many people. We ended up being one of the finalists, but then getting disqualified. So it's a whole thing. You can read about it. But yeah, we had Afri from Parity join us, and we had incredible contributions from mentors who were there, which we wouldn't have been able to do what we did, even though we didn't even do it, without the help of the mentors who were there. So this is so this is Gurley. Gurley is its own organization on GitHub. Basically, what it is trying to create a cross-client proof of authority testnet. So for whoever isn't really unfamiliar with that, I'll kind of talk a bit more about why that matters or why you should care about that maybe. But yeah, these are the things we're working on. Basically, there's a configuration for Gurley, and this is a bit old, so right now it's like Gurley and Koti, which is on Ethereum Classic. We were grantees from the ETC cooperative to be able to work on this at the beginning, which is quite interesting. So these are just the different things we've worked on and are continuing to work on. Something that I'd like to talk about is the bridge that that Elizabeth and Chris have implemented and built the UI on top of. So basically you can, we don't have a faucet. So for anyone who's not familiar, a faucet is a way that you get testnet ETH to then go in, do what you need to do in the testnet. So we don't have that. We have all the other testnets acting as a faucet, and then we have a bridge that allows you to exchange any of the other testnet ETHs for our ETH. And eventually we'll have a regular faucet when we relaunch the network, which might happen at GurleyCon if you come. But if you don't come, it might not happen, so you have to come to find out. Or just listen to Twitter, I guess. So this was what the active nodes looked like at one point. We just reset the NetStats monitor, so it does not look like this right now. But yeah, you can barely see, but there are people from Infura, there are nodes from Infura, Parity, VDF, and just a bunch of different organizations that have taken a liking to this project. So what is kind of a permission testnet? What is a proof of authority testnet? And so we can start by talking about why proof of work testnets don't work maybe. And it's because there's no incentive. So in traditional proof of work, you have an incentive to mine, and that secures the network. But when talking about a testnet, you don't have that value. So as has happened, In the past, you get spam attacks and things like that because anyone can easily take the network down because it's not meant to be secured. It's a test net. So during one of the kind of more famous attacks, Parity responded to that by creating a proof of authority test net called COVID. And that uses authority around Sephora as its consensus mechanism. Basically, that's one of the big kind of reasons that we worked on this project is because then Geth worked on another one called Cleek. And so that created a discrepancy in the test nets and basically set us on the path of never being able to have a cross-client test net. And you can imagine that is a problem. The biggest kind of issue is that test nets go down. It doesn't happen often, but it does. And when that happens, in the traditional blockchain, you have multiple different clients. You have kind of redundancy in having these different pieces of software running your blockchain. So in this situation, we just don't have that. So block goes down. And then also, for example, Parity has different kind of features in the client like PWASM that make it so that we could never have these two test nets working together, right? Yeah, very cool stuff. So that's why they couldn't be together. And so what this project attempted to do originally was implement ORA into Geth, just destroy Geth. So we decided to go the other way. And now, we've had extreme success with getting the community to help us in bringing, Cleek to different clients. Right now it's implemented in Geth, Pantheon, Ethereum, JS, Nethermind, and I think there was one more. I'm pretty sure there was a fifth, but I forget, to be honest. And the Parity implementation currently it works. It just doesn't seal blocks well, so it doesn't work. But it kind of does. It's pretty cool that it kind of works. But hopefully it'll be done for early time. Maybe not. We'll see. But we're really, really lucky to have an incredible community who has gone out, built a bridge in Bridge UI, which acts as our faucet. We have, we're lucky to have a POA, which added us to Block Scout. ETH stats, which Parity was taking care of. So we wouldn't have been able to do this alone. The Pantheon team, the Geth team, Ethereum JS team, the Nethermind team, all decided to take this on and add early support. So though we started this project, we're definitely not, the ones that are doing the main work right now on little things like the bridge and Bridge UI, but we really needed people to take ownership of this project and make it happen. So we can talk about Cleek a bit. Again, this is this kind of idea of proof of authority. So you have kind of people that you've given this kind of authority to be able to sign these blocks. You can amend that validator set by voting on things pretty simply. And there's a couple different things, for example, epochs are repurposed and just different things like that. So for example, on ETH stats, it was never optimized for proof of authority. So on any proof of authority testnet, the ETH stats monitor would show uncle blocks, for example. We're very many years into the Ethereum space, and no one has gone ahead and made that, rectified that. And so these are little things that we are working on, and this project has kind of led to, is caring about dev UX a bit more than traditionally we gave any space to, which was unfortunate. Right now you can go on the testnet repo, github.com/girly/testnet, and you can see the projects that we're working on, that we've worked on, that are currently open for bounties, so you can go home tonight and start getting paid to work on this. It's totally on, a lot of it's on Gitcoin now. We're in the process of moving everything to Gitcoin. You can go home and start contributing right now to a bunch of different things. Like we're looking for Ethereum J help. So Java, we need some help with like Mantis, which is Scala. So there's a couple different things that we still need the community to help us with. But yeah, we're not writing Java, that's for sure. So this is how you can kind of get involved. We have our Gitter. You can run a node, report bugs. You can donate to our multisig. You can do a lot of different things. But the first thing you should do is just join the conversation and let us know that you want to get involved. Let us know that you want to do something. Because like I was saying, there's a lot to do still, even though these are things that most people don't care about, like implementing Click in Fury and J or Harmony, whatever. I'm kind of confused about how that whole thing works. But yeah, there's a multisig right now that myself, Afri, and MP hold the key to. So yeah, there's no big pot of money sitting there somewhere. Right now, like, these are how many people have actively contributed to making this a reality. It's a lot of people, and I can't even begin to like read them all. It's making me nauseous look at that many like that. But yeah, thank you to every single one of them. Because again, this would not have been possible because there's just so much work to be done to implement consensus engine into so many different clients. Yeah. So yeah, this is basically it. If there are any questions, I'm sorry if I was a bit brief. I want to keep it that way. Just if there are any questions, please.
More t-shirts.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just take a 10-minute break, so if you want to grab another drink, eat some more pizza. We got so much pizza, we got pizza coming over our ears. And then come back here, we got 2 more presentations for you. Cool. Thanks.
It's actually crazy. It really is. I was just taking a look at their presentation. 一直压力就好啊。Obvious, it's so obvious. I'm not gonna be able to do that. What?
About the backing.
Hello? Hey everyone! So you can all grab a drink, get yourself back comfortable again, maybe grab another slice of pizza, we've got so much going on. Can you get up for our box? So grab a seat, we're going to start again. We've got Dave here from Polkascan. Come on, grab a seat. Come on, sit down. I'm talking to you guys. Come on over. Come on. We're about to start off again. Get yourself a beer, get yourself a lemonade, grab another slice of pizza. So got 2 more talks to go through. And then we have some time to talk some more at the end. Yeah? Hey guys! Hey! Come on, take a seat. Come on. Come on. Take a seat. I want to see some butts on those chairs. Get comfy. You having some good conversations? Just didn't want to stop? Nah. So we got some more time at the end. We can have some more conversations, some more beer, some more pizza. Plenty more time. The night's still young. Maybe you want to go somewhere else afterwards and continue your conversations. Who knows? But for now, I want to hand the mic over to Dave from Polkascan.
Thank you for having me. Tonight, a first introduction of Polkascan. So I'm going to give a heads up on what we're working on, and of course afterwards get room for some questions. So a little bit about me. Dutch from Rotterdam. I'm not a coder, but I'm a project manager with a little nerd heritage. Of course, blockchain, the community especially, very fond of that. I really like that. And we work with 2 companies, Web3Scan and Web3Source. And I'm going to tell a little bit about Web3 Source and Polkascan. It's one of the products we're working on under that name. So what we do with Web3 Source is IT service management for blockchains. What is IT service management? Is actually everything you need to do to get a happy customer. And I'll tell a bit about why we came to IT service management, and it will show in the next slides. So we've got one of our projects is Polkascan, and it's actually a tool that helps us to be able to do service management in a proper way. And if you talk about the company on one side, focusing on IT service management for blockchains, and the tools and methods we are developing, and this is one of the first tools we are trying to bring to the market soon. So if you talk about the relevance of IT service management, you've got like on the one hand the individual, who wants to do a transaction, and if you're not doing the transaction now, you're doing it in maybe half an hour, or if you want to do it like real secure and you've got your own node and it's not up to date, you might do it a day later or a few days later. And on the other hand, you've got businesses, and businesses are relying more and more on business critical blockchain infrastructures. So, if you look at mission critical business, it's not about like we can do the transaction like in 15 minutes or half an hour or first gonna take a snack. No, it's like you want to do it now. It has to be correct. It has to be performant, and for that, down the line, you need proper IT, and that means having a node, being available, being sure of performance, all sort of stuff. And if you look at the Polkadot, and why Polkadot? Polkadot, well, we already saw a few presentations about that, but it's actually a multi-chain universe. And that will become more and more important for individual businesses or cooperating businesses like consortia to be more efficient, do more with less, all that economic incentives. And from there, if you look at the scope we just looked at, on the one hand the individual, on the other side mission critical business, with Polkadot there's a big chance we're going to see more mission critical business building on blockchains. So, and that said, there will be also more and more service providers to help out, on that part. And of course, block explorers, gateways are the low-hanging fruit. Not easy, but still things that everybody needs to do their thing. And everybody, maybe not everybody, but at least a lot of networks will need these tools. So there we came to Polkascan, and Polkascan is a gateway, a blockchain gateway that should make it easy for you to bootstrap your environment. If we look at the important items like reliability and scalability and performance, having IT and running a node is one, but being sure of processing a number of transactions, being sure of availability, these are all things that need to be arranged if you want to offer mission critical business. And a lot of these businesses, they have their own goal, and they don't want to be bothered with any blockchain related stuff. For their business it could be easy to use it, it provides some advantages, but they might outsource some stuff or at least get support on how to arrange things for them the best they can. So to make it simple, on the left hand, you've got like, the all-day user having their own node, having an API, enabling to interact with the node, and actually, creating a blockchain out of nothing. And if you're talking about availability and performance, that's not the way to go. Next step would be, let's put there 2 nodes. So, you're updating one and then the other one crashes and you still have nothing. So what we are working on is building this cluster, this node cluster that enables us to provide services at a certain service level. So if you want an agreed service level, talking about availability, talking about transactions, this is something we think there will be a growing need for, and there will be a lot of businesses that would like to outsource these services, or at least to get support on how to arrange this. And if you then talk about Polkadot, you're talking not about one API gateway, but maybe an API gateway node cluster for every little chain, parachain there is. So with Polkascan, we're going to mission critical blockchain infrastructures, and this is basically where we're going to. So a little bit about the main components. Building, this service should be as easy as getting an endpoint, talking to the endpoint, thinking about the performance you want, and getting an endpoint is easy. But at the end, there has to be done some processing. The node cluster, the node API gateway has to be set up. So what we basically thought about is like these 4 components, being the user portal. If you want to communicate, you just go to the user portal, you make yourself known, for instance, by an email address, you get an API key, and with this API key you can invoke the API, Polkadot API. When you talk to an endpoint, you actually talk to a reverse proxy application. And this application will make sure that everything that happens in the background, and I might be able to move a little bit next, to give a better overview. So if you do a request, you come at a reverse proxy, and the task of the reverse proxy is actually to move these in the background. All this stuff that you normally regularly have to do to build a service, it's in the background for you. And there are also some features like caching mechanisms, where we can try to add performance of data where we are sure for that it won't change, that we can give a quicker response and provide faster performance or better performance. Then an elastic manager will help to scale up and scale down. And of course, everybody knows now we've got like Azure and AWS, where you can scale up, dynamically scale down. But the trick is, I think, to get this few extra percent of really making something specifically work with blockchain technology and really know how to push out these few extra percent and not being a general resource manager. And at the end, we've got our own benchmark application, and the benchmark application helps us, to do performance tests for ourselves, but also provide input for the Elastic Manager. So the Elastic Manager exactly knows, what the thresholds are to get some more resources in there or to scale down a bit. So everything what we have made and we are building on, what's like the target audience for us, and of course Polkadot ecosystem, what we're looking like at chain implementers, stewards, implementers, and of course businesses who are using blockchain for their mission critical business. And all those parties, or a lot of those parties, they might be in need of blockchain management support. And with this Polkascan tool, we hope to provide them with a first help on that part. We've got a roadmap, And what you see here on the left side is the top. Top is like more general, and the bottom is like more technical stuff. We've got like Polkascan, and that's nice because who knows Polkascan already? Few hands, few hands. Okay, Polkascan is a blockchain explorer for Polkadot, and it's also built by our company. Emil did a lot of work for that. Polkascan had the same challenge of providing blockchain data, but also being in need, you know, of nodes that were available, high available, because of, you know, pending upgrades. Sometimes the systems go down. So that was the first step to build a Polkasource for. So Polkasource, working on HTTP, was then used by Polkascan to provide proper service. And that's also, you know, where we started to see parallels on other businesses having the same issues. We're planning in a few months to open it up and provide limited key availability, so that we'll work with some limited parties to further work on, you know, improving the product, and not like improving the product from a vacuum, but really interact with our clients and see where they need improvements. And from there going to service level management and also providing WebSockets, because a lot of clients nowadays also use WebSockets. And after sometimes, and also probably in parallel with, you know, the mainnet, because we still have a few months to go, going to try to onboard some clients and also have the Elastic module available. So that's for now. We've also got a blog upcoming. It's, I think, next week being released. So try to keep in mind and do some reading. That's for now. Any questions?
Yeah, so I guess this is a bit of an interactive question. Because my first question to you is like, I think I saw somewhere that you described Polkasource as like Infura for Polkadot. Yes or no?
Let's make it an interactive question. I think they are very well known because of their public endpoints, and they did a good job. If you look at what we're going towards, I think we also have the same challenges. We've got the Polkadot still developing. We've got customers, you know, wanting to connect and providing issues in terms of performance where we have to react on. But still, it's really early, you know, to make differentiation and to make a comparison between what they are, you know, providing and what we are working on.
Yeah.
So
the challenges are similar, but I guess another way to phrase my question would be like the whole point of one of the points of Polkadot is to make stuff like Infura obsolete. Like, for example, if it's so easy to run a light client in your browser, then you never need to connect to any nodes again. So I guess, how does Polkasource stand in that ecosystem?
yeah, if you look at like, let's go a few slides back. If you look at this one, there's like, on the left side, you know, lightweight use cases. And I think if you look at what we service, like from a service management perspective, there are a lot of companies that already work together, that know each other, that already have binding contracts on how they work together, but just want to find a better way, easier way, more efficient of working together using blockchain, and still have challenges on how to get this live, how to come to agreeable performance levels. So I think we're moving towards that spectrum, but still it's too early to say where we're exactly going to get at the end. But we have still 10 months from now until we have mainnet launch, and we also have our proposition completely. This is like a first presentation. It's still in development, and we're working really hard on the proposition, on the other way, the technology, and still, if there would be multiple parties, it would be better than having one party. But that's not what we're aiming at. We're really working together with the community to develop something that fits the Polkadot users best.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What's your size? What's the size of the t-shirts?
It's an S, but I already got one. I need both.
Of course.
I have a box of t-shirts as well, but I can take another one.
That's okay, no worries. Any other questions? Yeah.
Am I got it right? Yes. Thank you. Am I got it right? You provide services related to ITSM for blockchain for corporates, yeah? So it's interesting to know what kind of companies or clients do you have, and if it's not private data, what's the median check,
Yeah. Like I said, it's still early. There are a lot of negotiations going on the added value and how to best express added value, and we hope to do some announcements in the near future.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jay. Now we have Alisher from Robonomics.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, hello. My name is Alisher. I'm from IRLab, an industrial engineer for a company where we meet robotics with Web3 technologies. And we implemented Node and testnet. We call this Robonomics on Substrate. And in the next 10 minutes, I will tell what makes sense to use blockchain in robotics in this field, and what Substrate delivers new for this as well. But I have to start opening for you a little tiny secret from robotics industry. Robotics is a buzzword. The key concept I ask you to capture is a cyber-physical systems. Cyber-physical systems is a key concept of industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution we are living in, we can see nowadays. And how many of you, maybe somebody of you, read this book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab? Oh, great. So for everybody else, I highly recommend this tiny book to get an overview of mega trends we are living in, and blockchain inside this as well. So cyber-physical systems are, as I told, robotics, IoT, and so on. It integrates. It's about integrating computations and communication in physical world. And when you hear robotics or IoT, you can think about it like about cyber-physical systems that describe it very well in this book. So in IRLab, we started at 2015, implemented what Nick Szabo described about smart contracts and his vending machine. We implement this concept with a drone drone delivery service, and this was, I don't know, the first experiment where somebody launched a robot from decentralized computer, and here you can see how my colleague launched it in the field. You know, I think we can go further here. So in 2017, when I was engaged I rolled this experience in industrial automation and smart cities IoT. We made a model to simulate how a full production line, there are 4 factories here and source provider and storage as well. So we simulate how industry could work with this concept as well. Just imagine a factory or a group of factory controlled the same way like Zabo described for his vending machine in his work. Last year we implemented plenty of projects, I think 20 of them in field of urban environment with sensors, moving sensors, flying and floating, with oil and gas industry in Russia, with pharmaceutical production to track supply chain in food production as well, and even in between art and robotics. We have a robot that makes pictures and sell it through Ethereum. If you want to buy one, let me know. So robotics on Ethereum, and we wrap all this experience in a platform, launched it in Ethereum mainnet in summer last year. There are 4 parts inside it. Smart contracts infrastructure to let developers reuse, to let robotics developers reuse platform contracts and to develop their own. We have application level protocol, like Benjamin described it, for Twitter-like platform that separates economically sensitive information to store it on the chain and separate not sensitive for financial data off-chain, with APFS for it, and it creates a providers network that works like a market for services, services that provides robots in this. We have a library for dApps developers, for UI developers, to let people ask for such services in the network, and we have a client for this network, Robonomics network, we call IURA, that support a de facto standard in robotics, robot operation system. So there are a platform that provides a complete tool set for robotics developers, and I can speak on it the whole evening, so I will not stop on this. But what values provides by using chains in between, as you know, currently cyber physical systems, not only robotics, but factories, sensors, and so on. Yeah, it's plenty of new business models we could find here. One of the mega trends in industry is creating everything as a service, and chains are very well for it. We work on the robot as a service template for Microsoft Azure, for example, to provide complete tools for corporates. It's a way to create a data-rich product. I mean, to have a whole story of product on this tag or on the product, not only what it consists of, and it's a way to deliver value for supply chain tracking for customers. Yeah. It's a way to deliver decentralized autonomous organizations principles in real sector. Just imagine a whole building, for example, that provides a place and services inside it in the way like Nick Zabo described it for vending machine game. and all smart city efforts and smart industry efforts are close to this. For sure, it's the next step of automation because integrating financial and technical data that we can do with chains is a great thing to create a machine-to-machine and human-to-machine markets. So we support robot operation system API with Aura, with our network client. It's a huge community of robotics developers around the world, and even little sensors and complex robots like this, and even such vehicles, for example, the Belarusian truck that my classmate works on, beautiful girl works on beautiful mind for this vehicle. Yeah, so, and we supported cross API in Substrate as well. Here you can see, or can you see? Let me show you. Let me show you bigger video. So there is a node that robotics engineers can use with the common API. They work to create something for their robotics projects. We implemented what we have in Robonomics platform in extrinsics, in runtime, in Substrate. And here you can see, for example, very simple ask and offer cyber physical system service with data which robotics engineers can take from chain as a trigger to launch a robot. So demand was sent, and here we provide an offer, and as you can see here, it's a command line tool for topic to see the data for liability robot takes to provide a service, and there is a data provided from chain. Yeah. So and thanks to Adam Moik that implements the ROS Rust. So we integrate ROS API in there, and what we have in Ethereum in here. So it's robotics supporting Substrate. For us, it's an alternative for corporate clients. Yeah, because I usually hear from them, could we use Hyperledger or Corda in projects we offer to them, and now I can say them Substrate. It's cool. It's why? It's because it's a specialization of what we have and not developing something very special. And we understand it's straightforward to Polkadot network. And I have to announce here that we want to launch our parachain for control cyber physical systems from decentralized computer based on Polkadot. And we need a community support for this. So if you can support this, please do it your way. So it will be a platform solution for robotics developers. And with this, we can see what developers will choose. Will they choose an Ethereum network solution, or will try to launch own parachain, or will use a common parachain for cyber-physical systems. We will see. And yeah, how it works I already told. And if you want to try it, a few days ago, my favorite simulations provider announced the support of Curiosity Mars rover inside their platform, and if we will have even 20 people who want to try this, just contact with me. I will launch workshop, online workshop. I don't know what can make sense to control a Mars rover through blockchain, but just for fun. Yep. Yeah, engineering people could watch for our work in GitHub, it's the website link, and we tweet about our progress as well. So thanks to Parity team to let me be here, and thank you all to them. Any questions? Yeah.
It's not a question, it's more of an idea.
But like, I really like the idea of the rover, you'll be able to control it. I think, you know, because Aracon's on this week, we should build like a DAO and hook it up to Twitch, you know, have like, you know, DAO plays Marvel. Just an idea, just an idea.
Cool idea. Yeah.
I probably missed the information. Could you tell a bit more about real life cases? You said that you had some real life cases.
Sure. Let's see on this picture. Very little tiny implementation we can see here is securing environmental measurements data by blockchain, because you know, it's sensitive data and it's a problem in post-USSR countries to provide information that this data are trustworthy, and we use blockchain to secure this data, to secure what company wants or people want to make a measurement, who provides this measurement, what types of you know, checking was this sensor, and so on. With this robot, we launch a floating sensor on the river to show how entrepreneurs would use Robonomics to launch own service for smart city efforts in city, to see what interests people in city have in form of money, you know, to launch such a service, and again to secure environmental data inside. For I can continue with the whole evening if you want. So to secure data as well, but for production, we have a partner. They have a product on a doctor. It's for people who have problems with I don't know, with English word immunity or with health, no? And they have to wear special thing with the chlorine inside, and to secure data about quality control that measures how much chlorine inside. We use a smart contract between companies that provides this quality control and ask for it, and secure data to store the sensors data inside IPFS, store the hash inside the Ethereum, and to show to customer by QR code in the D app that in the UI that that this data was not you know, edited through after product was made. If you like, I can tell you more personally maybe.
ask other questions offline. Thanks.
Thank you too. Any other questions?
Hey there. So obviously when it comes to things like sensor data, like the data is only as good as the sensors. Do you guys have any models or practices to kind of deal with that issue?
Excuse me, what issue? Do you mean?
So for example, I mean, you're measuring like weather data, as I understand it, or like emissions data.
Air pollution data, you know, and
Yeah, but the data is only as good as the device is collecting it. So what is there to ensure that that data is correct and valid before it enters the chain?
Yeah, it's a question of how to, you know, it's not an issue for IT system that works with data. I mean, it's a question to hardware guy, you know, and what we have to store inside IT system is data about check for this sensor, yeah, and this work could be made with involving smart contract inside this as well. And if we store this data with, you know, signatures and data from the sensor we trust and the sensor we check, it's enough to check, you know, that process was made as it should, was standard. Yeah.
Thank you.
But we just use good enough sensors, you know, because it's not a business product made, but we have support for this. Sure.
I think the question was mostly about the how to prove that the data from the sensor is not faulty for a reason. Like how to prove it's correct. Maybe somebody to manipulate the data.
So, for sure, the ideal and the best answer for this one could find in Ethereum white paper. Yeah. In the end of this, you may find the description how chains could use to get information, big data, let's say, from the many data providers, and I think that with such a big data, we can incentivize or pay for guys that are in the median percentile, in the I mean.
You're talking mostly about reputation system or something else?
It's not reputation system, but about support of the providers of data that are in the mean. Yeah, I mean, if you have a normal probability graph, yeah, let's say, let's pay to ones who are in the middle, and we will throw out the.
You mean this, like you can have a confirmation of data from other sources, and if somebody's lying, it means that it's like it's not in his good reasons to lie, because he would need to convince everybody else to put some wrong data.
Yeah, but
it's like
a realistic solution. Yeah.
I mean it's not. I mean it's not in his best interests. Individual matter is not in his best interest to lie to other world, because everybody else will not lie.
If you could earn more in trustworthy, yeah. So it's better to behave such a way. But it's a realistic solution for sure. And in smart cities efforts, it's not possible, you know, to get so much data from the different providers to check are they independent or not. And for example, we have a partner who develops on top of Robonomics platform for climate initiatives. I mean, to measure how many carbon gases was emitted, to check how much carbon footprint a company and the whole country make, and to trade a value of how much they didn't use to sell this, yeah, and it's again it depends on data and data trustworthy. And what we have here is audit process, where one of company from Big Four, KPMG, involved to sign this data with their Ethereum key. They check that, okay, this company made a forest, this company makes better their production. They have electricity company who lower their footprint, for example, currently. And while trustworthy auditor signs this data, it's trustworthy. We can work with this.
Cool, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, thank you for being here. Quick update from Parity. We have our next Berlin meetup planned for the 28th of February. It's happening full node, and keep an eye on meetup for the next announcement on that. If you're going to FOSDEM this weekend, we're also having a meetup and workshop then at Space Louise, the Silver Square. You can find the information on Eventbrite. And also, if you're going to ETH Denver, we're also having a meetup there on the 13th of February, where we'll have Chainsafe again talking, and we'll have some talks on polka dots. So super fun, super exciting. So keep your eyes out. Check out our GitHub, Parity Tech, and follow us on Twitter at Parity Tech. Please stay, have some more drinks. We have space until 10. There's lots of pizza. There's so much pizza, I can't handle it. So feel free to take some home if you do, so we don't let it go to waste. Have a lovely evening. Thanks.
What's the next London one?
In the works.